Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night. It is your boy, the Horrorlander, your number one favorite horror hero. And today I'm joining you guys to talk about my favorite found footage horror movie that I had the pleasure of watching not too long ago during the beginning of my summer break. And I was holding off on covering this movie, but one of my fans and subscribers on this YouTube channel actually reached out into my DMs and asked me if I could cover either the scariest or my favorite found footage horror movie. He was actually in my comments on my latest video, the one that came before this, talking about vintage horror paperbacks. I believe his name was Akshay Kumar or Abhishek Kumar, but fellow Indian bro, sorry if I messed up your name, but he asked me if I could do a favorite found footage horror movie review, so I decided to do it, and that is none other than me talking about VHS 99, produced and released in 2022. So, some of you guys may notice that I have rebranded my YouTube channel for the third time. I changed I was originally BD Horror, then I became the Horror Tavern, and now I'm the Horrorlander. Me changing my channel's whole thing to the Horrorlander was an impulse decision, but I felt that the name, the Horrorlander, was pretty good because I am a fan of The Boys. It's one of my favorite TV shows out right now. Very popular, very relevant, but it's also one of my favorites. And Homelander, played by Anthony Starr, the great Anthony Starr, is one of my favorite characters. So I think that the Horrorlander is a pretty fun name for my YouTube channel, and that one more so fits my personality because on this YouTube channel, for those of you who've not tuned in, we get freaky, we get comedic, we get pretty balls to the wall, we get pretty extreme, but I do have my serious moments, and I'm trying to be the top of my game in terms of horror YouTube. So I think that Homelander is a pretty good role model for that. As bad of a human being as he is, it's a good role model symbolically for my channel, and the Horrorlander I think will just stick well to the type of content I make, better distinguish my channel, and this is going to be my finalized channel name. I'm not going to change after that just because this one came to me impulsively. I think it's a good direction for my channel. Apologies for those of you who loved the Horror Tavern, but this is going to be the direction going forward. I think you guys will still like it. Some of you may even like it better, but thanks for bearing with me. And this is me, the Horrorlander, because I am all you guys' favorite horror hero. So without further ado, let's dive into Brat Studios, which is basically broke Vought Studios, because if I say Vought Studios, I'm gonna get copyright strike. So Brat Studios is going to be bringing to you today a coverage of my favorite found footage horror movie, which is VHS 99. Now, I have seen every movie in the VHS franchise. I've seen the original trilogy, I've seen the new movies that have come out, and obviously I'm waiting for the new VHS movie, which is going to drop, I think, later during October this year, which I think is supposed to be science fiction based. So I've seen all the movies so far. I've seen all 6 of them, I believe. I believe there's 6 movies. And I have pretty much enjoyed the franchise. I think that it's really cool that they do found footage in an anthology horror format. And a lot of the time the movies end up being pretty good. The only one that I found kind of bad was VHS Viral, but even half of the segments in there I still kind of enjoyed to a certain degree. But the rest of the movies have been pretty damn good, if not great. And this movie, VHS 99, spoiler alert, I give this movie a 9.8 out of 10 to potentially a 10 out of 10. I think that this is a anthology horror movie that rivals Creepshow 1 for me. I know that's crazy. Creepshow 1 is so highly regarded. I've sung its praises a lot, but I think that VHS 99 came out in 2022. I think this movie rivals the original Creepshow in terms of how much I love it as an anthology horror movie. All the segments in here are pretty much pretty decent to good, just flat out being perfect. There are 5 anthology horror segments shot in a found footage style in this movie, so I'll be covering all 5, and I'll just give my overall thoughts. But just to kind of save some time, this is a pretty much damn near perfect horror movie to me. Even in some of its weaknesses, I can pretty much forgive them. And it's just a lot of fun. You get a lot of variety. You get a lot of scary, creepy, disturbing ass shit that will stick with you. You get some fun horror comedy in there. And it's just going to leave you with a good feeling. You'll have a fun time. You'll be scared shitless at certain points. You'll be freaked out with how weird it's getting in a good horror fashion. And you're also going to have some good laughs. So overall, a pretty much perfect package of a horror movie. And without a doubt, it's the best found footage horror movie that I've seen thus far. So, as you have explained, and you probably have seen in my other 2 VHS horror movie reviews, each of these movies have anthology horror segments in them, and they usually come with a wraparound story segment. This movie does not have a wraparound segment to cover the entire film. It just has shots of like toy soldiers being played with and some goofy commentary. I skipped that shit. I mean, it's quirky, but I didn't really care for it. It didn't have much substance outside of one tie-in towards a story at the end. So no wraparound segment. You don't got to worry about focusing on that shit or cutting back to that shit. It's just filler segments of toy soldiers playing in between. So that out the window, let's talk about the 5 anthology segments. So the first one that opens up the movie is called Shredding. Now, Shredding is about these group of these rebellious sort of punk rock teenagers. They have a punk rock band that they're trying to become famous off of. They upload their clips to the internet. They do sort of underground band, I guess, venues and stuff. They don't do any big underground venues, but they sort of just play for themselves. They're trying to be famous, trying to get their name out there. And they're your typical shithead teenagers, you know. They break into abandoned places, they vandalize property, they pull pranks. They got some pretty atrocious dialogue. The acting and the dialogue in this segment is fucking horrendous, dude. It is your typical, not sleazy, but just poor quality found footage acting tuned up on steroids. I mean, this thing has got fucking DC's Bane level steroids in terms of how bad the acting is, which is why it detracts some points from me. But this punk rock band essentially reveres and looks up to a previous punk rock band that was an underground one. They did a lot of underground venues. They were very popular, and it was a group called Bitch Cat. And Bitch Cat was a group of these, I believe, lesbian punk rock band girls. They were very popular, and they got a lot of notoriety. They were very rebellious, and you hear some of their music. Their music sounds like your typical old punk rock music, so it was pretty decent music. I actually messed with the music a little bit, and I liked the whole, you know, vibe that they had going on in terms of their image and their whole claim to fame. And an urban legend surrounds around these this group called Bitch Cat because they had played in an underground venue called Colony Underground with this obviously quite, you know, big live audience, and an electrical fire had broke out on stage, and the girls ended up getting trampled to death as the fans started panicking and trying to escape. So these girls ended up meeting a very grisly death. So this group of rebellious teenagers decides to take their cameras and go out there to this Colony Underground venue and try to basically reenact the Bitch Cat's performance for some YouTube or internet views. They're going to live stream it or upload it. One of the guys in the group is pretty reasonable. He doesn't want to go there because he's paranoid. There's been rumors that the place is haunted and the bodies or the zombie corpses of Bitch Cat may still be moving around and performing there, something on that order. And he's a paranoid guy. He comes from a religious background, I believe a Spanish background, so he has a name for walking spirits in these haunted areas. But the rest of the group basically just punks him out, calls him a bitch, thinks that he's not willing to go there, and he ends up getting peer pressure to join them. And when they do get to the venue, they blow up some inflatable sex dolls and try basically doing this kind of disrespectful performance, sort of making fun and mocking Bitch Cat and what happened to him, just to get some views and attention, you know, your typical shithead teenager stuff. But then things go wrong, because let's just say there might be more than meets the eye going on in this haunted venue, and some horrific gore and violence occurs. Pretty justified, all things considered. I mean, it's extreme in terms of some revenge plot, but it's pretty brutal. It's pretty iconic in terms of how well it's done. You got some good prosthetic makeup and effects that happen, and the ending to this segment is very fucked up, because it may or may not, let's say, involve some mangled corpses doing a performance, a last performance. And it's very much, the way it's shot kind of reminds you of like Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, like those sort of neon colors and the way that they're performing. Pretty crazy, pretty wild, but it was fucked up and disturbing. So the only reason I kind of bring down the segment is the acting is so fucking bad. And I can usually excuse some bad, sleazy acting, especially in horror movies and found footage, but it was so bad. The dialogue was so atrocious that I had to take points off because I was literally watching it and I'm physically cringing at some of the stuff that they're talking about just because it's so poorly done. And it is a pretty predictable plot. But the actual violence and gore and the climax and the way that the ending is shot, how messed up it is, how weird it is, but at the same time, pretty satisfying. I would give this one a 7 out of 10. I think it's a decent segment. I had to take off points for the acting, but if it wasn't for that, I'd probably give it like a 7.5. Pretty good segment. I like some of the stuff in it, but because of that, it's a decent one. I think you'd still have a fun time as long as you're a little bit forgiving. But if you rated it lower, I can see why. But I got to give credit to the good things that it did. So that's the first segment. The second segment is muy bien. Perfection, yo. Perfection. The second segment is one of the best found footage things, period, in media that I have ever seen. It is beautifully done. It is gruesome. It is sad. It is fucked up. It's got some good urban legend stuff in it. It's got some amazing practical effects, some paranormal shit going on that's pretty crazy. And I absolutely loved it. I love this segment so much. And this one is called Suicide Bid, I believe by a guy named Johannes Roberts. I don't know. I know his first name's Johannes, but Johannes, you wrote this segment. You are amazing, dude. It's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Excuse me. You're a genius. It is perfection. It's a 10 out of 10 off the rip. This segment is about a girl who I think is a freshman in college. Her name is Lily, and she ends up doing what's known in college as a suicide bid, where she only signs up for one sorority. And this way, it's a suicide bid because if she doesn't get in, she will be prevented from joining any other sororities throughout all of her semesters in college. So she'd basically become an outcast. You know, she's a very attractive, pretty girl. And she thinks that she might become a social outcast. If she doesn't get accepted, it's a big party school. It's very important. So she decides to take the suicide bid and join one of these sorority parties. And she ends up getting actually accepted. They actually end up meeting in this cathedral church area by a graveyard. And these sorority girls are muy bien. Yo, they are bad as fuck. They are beautiful. You got some beautifully bad bitches in this sorority VHS segment. Bad as shit, yo. I don't know where they be casting these females that they find in these VHS movies. Bro, how can I audition and get on set? Because clearly from the shredding segment, you're not looking for good actors. I can act better than those motherfuckers. Yo, hook me up. Get me in that shit, bro. I'll hook you up with the business email. You know what I'm saying? I'm an established YouTuber though up front, so you know I might ask for like maybe 5% extra, just 5% extra commission. Or if you want to skip on the commission, shit, hook me up with some of the ladies' numbers. But it is what it is. Listen, man, this is like a casting couch, bro. I need to get on one of these movie sets, bro. Listen, they ain't looking for no Leonardo DiCaprios. They ain't looking for no Chris Evans, no Ryan Reynolds fame. All right, listen, some dude off the street like me, you know what I'm saying? I could get the hookup. Hook me up and get me on set. But That aside, she joins this sorority party group, and they meet up at this church cathedral area, and they tell her that they're going to have an initiation process which will determine if she finally gets accepted, because they really like her. They really enjoy, her look and how she might represent them. And they got this weird cult-like vibe as they walk around her and do chants and these hand symbols. Weird as shit. It looks like a fucking cove of witches and shit. Some hex girls ass fucking vibes. And they say that your initiation process is going to be going into the graveyard, and you're going to be buried alive for a certain number of hours, buried for one night. You're going to be buried for basically a couple of hours or something. I don't know how many hours, but you have to get buried alive in this open grave. They'll shut you in, and you have to stay there with a camera. They're going to give you this camera that you carry inside, record yourself, and once they dig you out, as long as you made it, as long as you don't ring the bell or try to call them for help, you're basically going to be accepted into this sorority. So reluctantly, Lily is very scared. She's very nervous. Obviously, she's got claustrophobia. It's a very scary situation. She doesn't know if she can trust these people. But she just decides to do it anyway because she's determined, and they sort of peer pressured her and allured her in there. So she ends up getting buried alive, but that's not before they explain an urban legend regarding their sorority, which was that 20 years ago, there was a girl who ended up actually trying to join the sorority, and she ended up taking this initiation process. I believe her name was Gilmy or Gilmite or something with a G. And she ended up taking this initiation process. She ended up getting buried alive, but they left her. They left her for a week inside of this coffin. And when they finally remembered to dig her up, she was no longer there. But it was explained that the backside of the coffin was actually broken and ripped open and dug into the ground. And the legend goes that eventually, as this poor girl was locked in this coffin, she ended up actually breaking her way out. And the only way she could dig was down. She decided to dig down instead of digging up, and she ended up digging herself down into hell. That's right, the urban legend of a girl rotting in a coffin, being buried alive for a week, and not knowing her directions due to claustrophobia. She ended up digging and breaking her way down into the ground and digging herself into the abyss of hell. And she's known as this spirit that haunts the graveyard. And they kind of hype up the urban legend that while, Lily is inside of this coffin doing her initiation, she has to make sure that she doesn't knock, because if she ends up knocking or making noise or freaking out inside of the coffin to try to get the girl's attention from above, she might actually attract the attention of this girl who dug her way down into hell, and she might come and start knocking and trying to break in inside of your coffin to get to her. So that is some horrific ass shit. And as Lily takes in, they give her this little box that they say that, in case you get freaked out, you can open up this box and it'll be a little bit of reassurance to you. So she gets a feeling that they care. She goes down, they bury her alive with the dirt. And she ends up, basically sitting in there, and, they end up eventually having to basically just sort of mock her and make fun of her. And she ends up getting scared. She freaks out. And before she can decide to knock and basically give up on this initiation, she opens up the box, and it's filled with tarantulas and spiders. So all these tarantulas and spiders flood out into this confined coffin 6 feet under the dirt, and now she's claustrophobic and she's got arachnophobia going on. Some fucked up shit. Meanwhile, the girls above are laughing. But then later that night, a rainstorm happens, and this rainstorm is very, very bad. So they decide, you know what, let's dig her out before, the dirt gets very wet and we won't be able to get her out, and maybe water might leak into the coffin. But then a police officer pulls up, and when the police officer pulls up to the graveyard, they realize, holy shit, we gotta dip out of here or get her out. But there's a chance we might get caught. We're not supposed to be here, and we'll get trouble. We're getting trouble. And, the main girl leading it, she's like, no, I can't get fucking caught. Otherwise my life's going to be ruined. My mom's going to be pissed. So they end up making the poor decision to run away. And what ends up happening is, obviously, the rainstorm is happening. No one can hear Lily knocking and begging for help and trying to get out. She's sweating and crying and freaking out because as the rainstorm is happening, the wet dirt is pushing on top of the coffin and breaking it, and then water starts seeping into the crevices. Water, dirty fucking water of this rainstorm starts flooding the coffin, and now not only is she claustrophobic, arachnophobia, but now she's about to drown and die. And she starts banging, screaming, help me, get me out of here. She's crying, and it's all on camera, and next thing you know, something starts knocking on the coffin, and uh-oh, is that Gilmy? Is that the girl? And next thing you know, a horrific looking ghoul girl slams her face, her rotting carcass ghoul zombie face, slams it against a little glass window in the coffin and says, let me in, and tries getting in to eventually get Lily. And what ends up happening is the next day, of course, the sorority girls come back. They eventually dig it up. They dive into the water to get Lily out of there. And Lily is not there. The coffin is broken open and empty. And let's just say the girls eventually head out of there with guilt. They pledge a I know what you did last summer thing to say that they're never going to speak about it again. And when they wake up the next morning, some fucked up shit happens, and it is some revenge plot that is muy bien. Well-deserved revenge plot, really well done, and the shit that happens the next day is fucking horrific, and you see it on 4 different camera views. Muy bien. Perfecto. This segment is so horrific, it's so horrifying, it's so sad. Lily does a great job acting as the main character. Her actress did a great job showing off how panicked she is, how scared she is, how freaked out she is. The urban legend of what happened to this girl 20 years ago to enter the sorority is crazy. An initiation process where you're buried alive and all this crazy shit is happening where you end up opening up tarantulas into your box. You get left there to rot and die. And then the fact that the story of this ghoul girl, digging her way into hell, and the fact that you cannot knock, you cannot go crazy, otherwise the knocking is going to attract that zombie girl to come up to your fucking thing and go, ah! That's crazy as fuck, yo. And the way that is done is scary as hell. So that was a fantastic segment, that gets out of 10, which is basically a 10 out of 10. It is a perfect fucking segment. Absolutely beautiful. I loved it. The next segment gets a 9.5 out of 10. It's called Ozzy's Dungeon. And the main character in this segment is the dude who plays Trevor from GTA 5. What are we doing, yo? What are we doing? Do I deserve this much peak fiction, yo? Do I deserve peak fiction like this? Your horror hero, the Horrorlander? Listen, maybe not, but I'ma goddamn take that shit. My boy Trevor from GTA 5 is the main character in this segment. Amazing. Ozzy's Dungeon takes place with this game show called Ozzy's Dungeon, which is basically a sort of kids game show where you have to go through obstacle courses. Jesus, I'm still thinking about the next segment. Obstacle courses. There you go. Maybe obstacle courses later. You don't know. They have to go through this wipeout sort of typical game show obstacle course, and they can end up winning like $1 million at the end of it. And obviously you got Trevor from GTA 5. That's how I'm gonna reference him. I'm sorry. Trevor from GTA 5, main character. He's the one playing Ozzy, the game host. And you got this girl named, I believe, Donna, I think. And she is this young black girl, very optimistic, very, you know, proud to be a part of this whole game show. And she's doing it so she can basically win her family this claim to fame, claim to fortune, and they can move out of their poverty-stricken neighborhood that they live in Detroit. So they're very poor, they're down on the ropes, and they're really relying upon their daughter to win this game show and then get them the money. So, and you can tell that Ozzy's kind of a shithead, like, you know, your typical, same like I said, Trevor, his actor does a great job playing a charming shithead. He basically sort of cuts off kids and doesn't really give a fuck about their dreams and stuff, even though he tries to act like he does. And they end up doing the game show, and the main girl ends up competing against this one older dude, and as they're going through the obstacle courses, basically the kid ends up fucking over the daughter, and she ends up basically snapping and breaking her leg. Like, fucking, it breaks open, she's bleeding, everybody in the audience is screaming, her family's like, holy fuck. And Ozzy does not decide to stop the game show. He decides to keep it rolling, and then the dude, the kid, ends up winning the money. So basically, they never ended up getting the money, and instead of Ozzy stopping the game show and helping out the girl, he just kept it running just to get more attention and more views. But eventually, it ends up backfiring because this show ends up getting canceled. And you cut to this jump cut into the future where the Ozzy dude ends up waking up inside of a dog cage. He's locked up inside of a dog cage. He's stripped naked down to his underwear. He's crouched in there. And you see that the dude is tied up inside of the basement belonging to Donna, the girl who participated in the game and got her leg broken. He is locked up in this poverty-stricken family's basement inside of a dog cage. And the main girl's mother, who I think name is Deborah, who her actress is hilarious, bro. She's got so much funny fucking dialogue. Your typical sort of comedian humor and shit, over the top with the, you know, bulging wide eyes and crazy look. She ends up creating a makeshift game show course inside of their basement, and they call this, you know, basically the revival of Ozzy's Dungeon, except Ozzy's going to be the one to go through there. And it's very over the top. Like, the mother has her son who's like a chemist, like he's training to become like a chemical engineer or something. He ends up creating this acidic formula that as soon as Ozzy decides to resist, the mother will pour it over him and the flesh will melt off of his body. So he'll basically get instantly killed if he doesn't do what they say. And he has to go through this really fucked up Saw sort of torture game show course where he has to, you know, crawl through broken glass. There's like smeared diarrhea and shit through like these water slides that he has to go through. I'm about to gag just thinking about it. It's really disgusting, really fucked up, and they make him do a bunch of shit that rips up his body and breaks his bones and really just fucks him up and hurts him. All the meanwhile, basically, the mother is threatening, I'm going to pour this acid over you, and you're going to basically either give us the money, give us all you got so we can get out of this fucked up neighborhood and lifestyle, or we're going to fucking torture and kill you. So he ends up eventually giving in, and eventually he reveals by the end of this torturous Saw type of obstacle course, before he ends up getting killed, that he says, no, I can get you what you need. I can get you the money, but we got to go back to the place where it happened. And I know it's difficult, but believe me, if we go back to the set where Ozzy's Dungeon was being filmed and recorded, I can get you the money. I can get you any wish that you want. And they think that, you know, this guy's fucking with them. Maybe he's leading them, but, you know, they threaten him the whole time. The mother makes sure to keep him on a leash. And eventually they go back to the set where this game show was filmed. And there's some secrets revealed about what's been going on at this Ozzy Dungeon game show and set. And it goes down some straight up Lovecraftian shit. And it goes pretty wild. It goes pretty crazy. There is a horrific, disgusting, weird as fuck sight that may or may not have to do with a host, a vessel, birthing something, some eldritch god. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that, but It goes batshit crazy. It goes very violent and, again, Lovecraftian. And at the end of the day, it's a very fun segment. So I'd give this one a 9.5 out of 10. It was a really, really fun, creative take on a sort of Saw franchise kind of story. But it's better than Saw, in my opinion, because it had some comedy in there. It had an actual gimmick of the game show, a revenge plot in there. And then it ended up turning into some Lovecraft shit. So very, very good segment. Great segment, in fact. And I really love that one. I give it 9.5 out of 10. The next segment is called The Gawkers. I'm going to keep this one relatively short because it's a simple plot. But The Gawkers actually opens up with the toy soldier in between wraparound things that have been going on. You actually find out that it's the younger brother of a dude who's been recording. And then you cue to the family. You got this younger brother and older brother. The younger brother is a sort of nerdy, sort of antisocial dude. And the older brother is sort of this jackass popular guy. And you got this friend group of, the best way to put it, dudes. You got this friend group of dudes. It's one of the dudes' nickname is Boner. You know the type of friend group it is. It's a bunch of jackasses. And they go around, they skate, they have fun. They pull pranks. They're creeps. They're often shown recording videos up girls' skirts and stuff, trying to hit on them. And then when they get caught, they run away like pussies. So the type of friend group they are. Hint the name Gawkers. And this beautiful neighbor ends up moving right next to their house. Really tall, fine ass. I'm talking about it, bro. Where do they find these women? This fine ass, tall, blonde girl who ends up moving in, and she's a little bit eccentric. She's got these giant Greek statues, these stone Greek statues all across her yard and stuff. And they're always spying on her and trying to look after her, basically just gawking at her, stalking her. And eventually the younger brother, dude, who's, clowned on for being a nerd, actually ends up getting invited over by her to install a TV that she ordered, or a webcam or something. And he ends up deciding to do it. I think it was a laptop or something that she wants to set up, or a computer. And he ends up doing it, but the friend group and his older brother peer pressure him yo, you're a smart dude, install spyware into her laptop so we can spy on her inside of her room. And if you do, you can start hanging with us. You can drink beers with us. And he's hesitant, but they peer pressure him and he decides to do it. And when he does it, he becomes a part of their friend group, and they obviously log on and spy through her webcam to her changing, see her taking off her clothes and stripping in her room. And, they're very, very excited, being creeps. And turns out something more than meets the eye, because early in the story, they found this 8-foot-long snake skin, this shedded snake skin out in a skate park, and they were threatening each other to eat it for money and shit. That may or may not play a factor into what's going on. And that's where I'm going to leave it at. It's a typical story of some dudes creeping on a lady, ends up being more than meets the eye, and you get some crazy action scenes, some iffy CGI effects, but overall, I like the premise. It's a short and simple one. I actually thought the humor worked pretty well for what it was. Got me to laugh at a bunch of points, and I thought it was pretty effective. Reminded me of a callback to the first ever segment in the VHS franchise, which was Amateur Night, that dealt with a succubus that ended up being taken home by some guys. This was a little bit similar to that, but they did a variant. They varied it up, changed it up, and I thought it was still pretty good. So I'd give this one an 8.5 out of 10, a very good segment. So that's the second to last one. And then the final segment is a horror comedy. It's called To Hell and Back, and it deals with these two guys who got this sort of your typical buddy cop, Tucker and Dale sort of relationship to each other, your typical stupid-ass friends, Bill and Ted or whatnot. And they end up actually going to this cult event where these coven of witches are going to record I guess, a summoning ritual where they summon a demon. They got this young-looking woman who's going to be offering her body up as the vessel, and these guys are sent there to record these witches performing the ritual and summoning this demon named Ukaban, who can only show up at midnight on a certain day of the year when the veil between hell and earth is at its weakest point, and that's when demons can enter. So they're sent there to record it, and as these coven of witches, this pastor and this cult starts doing this summoning ritual on camera while these two guys are recording. the wrong demon ends up coming out, and the wrong demon ends up basically grabbing onto the two main characters, the comedic duo. And when the Coven of Witches sends the demon back because he grabbed onto these two guys, they end up getting teleported into hell. And you get this whole set of hell. It's like this red landscape, looks like the Grand Canyon. You got this flashing purple lightning storms, this dark, ominous mist and storm clouds and stuff. And they basically have to find a way to get out of hell. And they encounter some crazy demons, some disgusting monsters, some, torturous traps that are laid out. They see this ominous giant Satan monster that might be Ukaban that's reigning over the hellscape, and they have to run away from it. Otherwise, they might get eaten or sacrificed to it. And eventually they encounter this sort of lower level demon woman named Mabel, who looks like a character out of Mad Max. And she decides, you know what, I'm going to help you guys get out of hell. She hates Ukaban. She wants to rebel against them. And all she hopes is that once they get back to the surface world, that they write her name in blood and write her in the book of hell. So that way she can be remembered in history, because she's a low-life creature who never gets any attention. So she wants some fame out of it. So they end up going through this crazy landscape. They may or may not get out, but there's a twist that might fuck over some things, and it gets quite brutal, a little bit sad, but overall it's a very fun segment, your typical sort of horror comedy. Really well done. I enjoyed it. I actually like the landscape and setting of hell that they made. Really well done for the budget, and it was a super fun story, really crazy. And it reminds me that I need to watch more comedies like Tucker and Dale versus Evil. So yeah, really like that segment. I'd give that one I'd say like a 9 out of 10. Really fun one, really enjoy it, and I'd like to see more work, because I heard there's some work that's tied into that last segment that you can check out, so I'll actually check that out. So yeah, that is my review for VHS 99 that came out in 2022. This is a 10 out of 10 movie. All the stuff I described in here, I had a great time with. I found fun, and there's a lot of fantastic segments in here, so I think that this movie rivals Creepshow 1 as my favorite anthology horror movie. And yeah, that's all I got for today. 100% recommend you guys check it out, and I think you guys will have a really fun time. That's all I got for today. If you guys enjoyed, hit that subscribe button down below and hit that like button, or I should say laser that like button and that subscribe button from your boy Horrorlander, your #1 horror hero. And stay tuned for more content to come. I got some fun ideas, some fun stuff to cover. So yeah, that's all I got for today. Have an amazing day, and I will see you until the next time. Deuces. Brought to you by Brought Studios. Bum bum bum.